This episode of the Jigsaw Podcast brought to you by Boxer Baby Bow Ties. If you have a cat or dog, you have to check out Boxer Baby Bow Ties. These are fashionable accessories for cats and dogs that are handmade by owner Kyle Marie Carsey right here in Indiana. You live out of state? No worries. All items ship anywhere in the U.S. So pamper your fur baby and show off their unique personality with their accessories for fashion-forward pets. Contact Kyle at boxer.baby.bowties@gmail.com or on Instagram at boxer.babies.bowties. Also check out her online store at boxerbabyboutique.com. Welcome to the Jigsaw Podcast. Really excited for tonight's episode. We're talking racing. Joining me are Kirk Daugherty and Jimmy Wyman, who run and operate the Winchester Speedway. Gentlemen, welcome and thanks for stopping by.
Thanks for having us.
Great to be here.
I love talking racing. We just got done with the month of May in Indy. The 500 was a great race.
A lot going on. I spent the whole month, for the most part, down there and had a blast. Had a lot of fun.
It was nice to see they actually got some nice weather. They were calling for rain all day Sunday, and it never did rain here.
They rained that thing out. That's all they talked about when I was down there. Carb Day was out of control.
I bet.
Couldn't believe the number of people. I could not believe the crowd, and it was crazy. The practice was nuts, and the Indy Lights race was.
That's always a classic.
Poor Chris Windham.
Windham, that ride he took at the Silver Crown race at the Hoosier 100.
It was ugly.
He was lucky to walk out of that one unscathed.
And the Indy Lights wreck was not much prettier.
No better.
We saw him over at the Little 500, Jimmy and I, and we walked up and said, "Stop. We need you out of Winchester. Stop doing that."
He's quite a wheelman.
It didn't even faze him.
No, I think you have to have that mentality to hop in those things every day after a crash like that. It seems like the Indy 500 is, because the glory days everyone talks about back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s and all that, it seems like it is starting to regain some of its traction since the split. What was the split in the late 90s?
95 was the last. Then in 96 became the IRL.
Right.
So I grew up in Plainfield, so on the west side of the city, and I snuck over to the racetrack from day one. I remember being there in 67 and seeing Parnelli in the Turbine, thinking that bright fluorescent orangish red car was going to be loud, and I was let down.
It wasn't really. Yeah, I had heard people talking about that. I think it might be at the museum, because I know me and my wife went down to the museum a couple years ago, and it's such an innovative design. It just never took off.
I mean, as a little kid, thinking I'm correlating sound with this color of this car, and all the other cars were loud,
right?
And this one was quiet.
So where'd your guys' love for racing start?
Me personally, I was kind of born into racing. I was born in 1966. My dad was racing back in the day, so I kind of grew up around the racetrack, and I've had a passion for it ever since. You know, I mean, Dad raced forever. It was well known around the area back in the old figure-8 cars and over at Anderson Speedway, so I just kind of carried on the tradition, as they call it.
Are you from that area?
I grew up in Selma.
Okay. Very close.
Yep. And so, you know, we're from Mount Lawn, Anderson, Fort Wayne, Winchester, you know, just went to about every racetrack there was. So that's where I started.
I just started out at the Indy 500.
So you're right down the road in Plainfield.
In Plainfield, and we were at Raceway Park every Friday night for the hobby stocks and late models. And if there was a Thursday Night Thunder or Saturday Night Thunder, we were there.
Yeah.
And fairgrounds, always went to the fairgrounds. I went to Terre Haute, but I've never seen a race there. I've seen them practice, and it got rained out every time, and my friends quit asking me to go. So
you were bad luck.
I was.
My dad raced at Anderson Speedway and Muncie Speedway back in the 80s, and I remember watching him race a little bit because I was pretty little, but he'd have Thursday Night Thunder on in the garage every week, and watching all the USAC guys, you know, the Gordons and the Voglers back in the day.
Oh, sure.
You had to. That was part of it.
That's how I got hooked, going from a young age.
Yep. Mom said I was at the racetrack within about a week of being after I was born.
Start him young, right?
Absolutely. Back in then, you know, it's time to go to work.
Put him in the car after a while.
Absolutely.
So how did that passion from growing up, did you guys end up actually working and running a speedway?
Well, I like I said, Dad raced, and then when I turned 15, I actually started racing. And then when I got out of racing, my kids started racing. So What happened when I raced at Winchester, Roger and Linda Holdeman owned the place. So after I started getting out of racing, Linda kind of asked me to come over and help her out a little bit. So I started, selling tickets. I started working the gates. I drove the pace car. I flagged over there. So I drove the wrecker. There's really nothing at Winchester Speedway that I personally have not done. I mean, I literally, other than probably driving the ambulance and announcing, I probably have done about every job over there capable. So, I mean, that's where my passion. It's just Winchester's just, like I said, when Dad raced there, he ran back in the old dry power days. And then when I got the honor of racing there, because back when we was racing, they didn't run R-type cars there. So when I finally got to race there, I thought I was big time. And I just, fell in love with the place, and now they can't throw me out of there.
Kirk, how about you? How'd you end up at Winchester?
I actually ran a trucking company. I got out of college, ended up in Chicago, and 20-some years later, I escaped back to Indiana and went and talked to Charlie Shaw about working and help running his trucking company. And through the interview, it went pretty well. And we talked agriculture, my degree's in ag, and we just kicked around a bunch of stuff. And then he asked me, what's your real passion in life? What do you really like? And I started talking about open wheel racing, and he grabbed his chest, and I thought, uh-oh, what's going on? And he threw a business card at me. I had no idea he owned Winchester Speedway. And then everybody in the room during the interview rolled their eyes, and some of them escaped and just snuck out the side door. And him and I talked racing for an hour and a half. And
it's a good interview.
Next thing you know, he's like, I guess you're going to have to come and work for me. So that's what got me going. And then, of course, he roped me in to come out to the racetrack and just started helping out. Brought some customers out there, just started doing some marketing. And then Jimmy and I started tag teaming some different things, and we're trouble. We were definitely trouble, and we've had a pretty good time. Had a lot of fun.
It sounds like you guys both wear a lot of hats at Winchester in your roles.
Yep.
Yes.
That's an understatement. Yeah. We have good people. And everybody else does the same. I mean, we've got a crew that jump on mowers and jump on and move dumpsters and portalets and you name it. We just do it. So
yeah, we probably got
a team.
Yeah, there's definitely a team effort. Anywhere from Monty Gaddis, he helps us out quite a bit. He's our third wheel on our Facebook Live show. Mm-hmm. He takes care of security, takes care of camping. Tina's in the office. Jim does the mowing. Brent, Timmy.
Yep.
Matt.
There's
just a certain core of us that do, kind of do everything. But as far as the roles and stuff out there, it's just mainly a team effort. I don't, nobody really claims to be the actual go-to guy, because we all know what our jobs are and we all try to get them done on race day. And, we're there early and the last ones to leave and we get her done. Usually we always sit in the concession stand when it's over, and our famous saying is, we made it through another one.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, and we start drilling down. Well, what did we do right? What did we do wrong? What do we need to improve?
Yeah, it's got to be a huge undertaking to put on a big show over there. If anyone's familiar with racing, Winchester Speedway is world's fastest half mile. I don't think there's a lot of debate about that.
No.
People can say Bristol, but they're wrong.
Yep. Thank you.
The history of that place, when was it actually built?
1914.
Wow. Was it the original half mile shaped in, or has it been changed over the years?
Typically the half mile shape, no banking. It was dirt. I keep hearing different stories of when it went to pavement, and people argue about that. And then Charlie ran across some stuff in his office just the other day that I'm going to try to get my hands on, some newspaper clippings that kind of described, because he remembers being there as a kid, and there was a certain year that he said, I know it was paved. Well, whether it was paved or whatever they used back then.
They used anything back then.
Yep, yeah, exactly. So,
what's the racetrack they've uncovered? The Jungle? Is it Jungle Park?
Jungle Park.
It was wood, wasn't it?
I don't think it was a wood track, but like the bleachers and stuff are still there. I thought it was a paved track, but I might be wrong.
I knew they used to use wood at certain tracks.
Yep.
I can imagine. Well, I mean, the brickyard, they use bricks.
Right. Yeah, the wood tracks were crazy. Some of the pictures I've seen, unbelievable.
The safety over the years.
Yeah.
What, in your guys' opinion, makes Winchester such a special historic place?
Scary.
It's
high
fast.
bank.
Fast.
Very fast. The who's who of IndyCar racing and now stock car racing. We've seen any and everybody come through there. Some of the names, it's pretty crazy to see the who's who.
Yeah, I was looking earlier, because we was trying to think who all's been there. And I guess it's probably easier to say who hasn't been there.
Yeah.
Because back in the Indy days, everybody come to Winchester first to get ready. And then, you start looking at the sprints, the midgets, the, late models, all the way up to trucks. I mean, it's crazy. NASCAR, I mean, I'd say probably 3/4 of the field in NASCAR today has probably ran Winchester. And like I said, the history of
the
it.
Xfinity series, the truck series.
Yeah, the Xfinity, the trucks.
I'll go out in my dad's man cave in Plainfield, and he'll have the race on, and we start looking. It's like, hey, we know him. I mean, we start looking at the scroll across the top, and we know 3/4 of the guys because they run at Winchester.
It's the history of knowing who's been there and what's happened there. And
I always look at it like some of the guys that haven't won that have been there.
Yes.
Mario Andretti, I don't think he's won. I don't believe AJ Foyt has won at Winchester.
But they've been at Winchester.
But they've been there.
And
they're pretty good.
And those guys have accomplished everything. I guarantee you they
Everything.
are still familiar that they never want that track.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because it is.
We were talking on the way over. It's like we started talking about Pancho Carter winning 12 sprint car races. That's amazing. I mean, Bigelow's up there, Dave Steele, Larry Dixon. I mean, it's the who's who. And Larry Dixon might be coming to our June 23rd event.
Really?
So we're crossing our fingers.
That'd be great.
Yep, sure would. We're working on a few other guys.
Yeah, I remember seeing when I was little going over there, and Jeff Gordon was running there, Tony Stewart. I mean, the list goes on and on. The
Ryan
guys,
Newman's
Ryan
always
Newman.
a big name. He's had a lot of success over there.
I mean,
Casey Kane.
Yeah, Casey. I mean, Ryan. Mentioned Ryan. He, I've heard him several times, and so has other people mention on TV when they ask him his favorite racetrack, and he always relates back to Winchester Speedway. And I got a tire in my garage. It's so funny because probably 99% of the people don't believe me. But when I was racing there, when he drove a sprint car there and broke the track, and it was a midget, I take it back, he broke the track record. Well, my kids, which was Jake and Jeremy, they went down to his team after the race and wanted Ryan to sign a tire. Well, they said, here's the tire that broke the track record, is the right rear tire. So he signed it, and it's still in my garage right now, and you can still see Ryan Newman's name on there. But the kids, back then, no one knew that Ryan would be what he is today.
Right.
But if anybody wants a Ryan Newman midget right rear tire, it's in my garage, and you can still see Ryan Newman's name on it. It's worth a lot to us, but it's just something neat to see that where Ryan came from and where he's at now.
Another name is synonymous is the Elliots, and I know Chase, which everyone thinks he's this overnight success. He won the 400, the Winchester 400, the big race in the fall, late model race. Was he 14, 15 years?
14. He came there when he's 13, and Bill Elliott, I remember hearing him talk about, if I'd ever seen this track before, I would not have brought my 13-year-old son. And he goes, well, we're here. And the kid had a great race. I mean, he got down a lap or two, and then I think he ended up 9th his first year. So it's like, wow, 13-year-old kid. And he very polite,
Oh, he was.
They were freezing.
Still is.
They're not from this, and it was cold that year. We're sitting there next to Charlie, and he's talking to some guy, and he's got the overcoat on, and I start hearing him talk, and it's like, I looked at my dad, and I said, well, we know who that is, because Bill Elliott's got a distinctive voice. And the next year, I mean, the kid came and tore it up.
So win that race, I mean, just to drive that track at 14 years old, I mean, the speed's there. I mean, what do the late models average around there?
They're in the 15 seconds, so they're honking 140 plus down the straightaways. They don't look that fast from the grandstands. If you go down and stand by the fence, they're getting with it down the straightaways.
Go in the infield if you ever get a chance.
Yes,
like
stand down the turns.
Down in 1 and 2, and you're looking at the top of the cars go by, and they're amazing.
Or if you see them hit the wall.
Yeah,
you kind of get an aspect of how fast they
I've always said that at racetracks. You don't realize how fast they're going until something goes wrong.
Yes.
And I'm sure it's the same way in the cockpit. But
it's crazy.
Back to Chase, I mean, to be 14 years old, and I could see maybe a 50-lap race where he just gets out and cruises, but there's pit stops, there's strategy. I mean, 400 laps on a big half mile like that, the maturity. So when he started winning the last few years in the Xfinity and the Monster Energy Series, what do they call it now?
Winston Cup.
I came, right. The Busch and Winston Cup Series.
Exactly, that's what I still call it.
Really not surprised. I mean,
yes.
No, it was funny. We were down at the vintage race, and Bill Elliott got a chance to run, and they have old Trans Am cars out there, so it's like a professional amateur race. Really cool. You get to see, there's 33 cars to go out there, and Bill Elliott was one of them. And I walk into his garage, and I'm like, I don't know if he'll remember me or not. Next thing you know, I just thought, high-five him or, say hey. He stopped me and my dad, and I think my daughter was with us, and she got her picture with him. And he had his McDonald's uniform from way back. And I started asking him, I said, when are we going to get Chase back? First thing he said, he's dying to get back to the short tracks. He loves that. Once he wins a few races, then he can go negotiate with Hendrick and try to get, because he'd love to come back to those. And then I said, I was lying, but I said, Bill, we got a car lined up if you're interested. And he says, I've watched too many cars on rollbacks come out of Winchester Speedway. I'll stick with this.
Yeah,
so
that place has torn up a lot of a lot of cars over the years. I think that's a great thing. It seems like a lot of the NASCAR guys are going back to. Tony Stewart kind of started it. Kurt Busch goes back and runs. Kyle Larson and Chris Bell had one hell of a battle at Lawrenceburg Speedway last night with the World of Outlaws.
I heard about that.
Great race. And it's great to see those guys come back because, to me, short track racing is, one, it's affordable, and the guys in the pits are approachable.
Yep.
And it makes great for kids, fans alike, but the kids get in there, they can meet their drivers, and they're going to want to come back over the years.
We got to hang with Christopher Bell when he was here, and he ran the Labor Day race. He led every lap, and he dominated, and he's such a great kid. Him and Daniel Hemrick came into the hospitality room. We're trying to get him on the radio, and they're over looking at all the old pictures around the hospitality room.
That's awesome.
It's like, hey, the radio guy's like, come on. I had to physically grab him and get him over there on the radio. So they loved. They're like, these guys were nuts back then. I'm like, wait a minute, you guys aren't all there either.
No,
you guys are crazy.
I mean, the safety's light years from what it was, but still, the way they scream around that place.
Christopher Bell is a bad dude. He's the real deal. We're going to be watching him for a long time.
And a very nice kid.
He is. Great kid.
They're all nice, but, Christopher's just got that aura about him. He's just a super nice guy to talk to.
And I didn't see it when I thought he was going to beat Eric Jones. Was that the third race that he won or the second in a row at the 400?
I think it was the second one.
They were going at it, and they kind of came together. I didn't see it because we got called off to do something, and Christopher Bell said, hey, I'm telling you, it was a racing incident, didn't point any blame. He's like, hey, it just happens, so no big deal.
That kind of happened.
He took the blame. He's like, it was my fault.
Yeah,
I'm the one that messed up.
That kind of happened with him and Larson last night.
Okay.
Larson, I don't know if he ran him off the track, but he jumped the curb. Bell jumped the curb and ended up tumbling it over in 1 and 2. But it's great to see those guys battle on Sunday and also through the week or a special weekend show.
It helps put butts in the seats.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
What about the track itself? We've mentioned it's a high bank and very, very fast. What's for a lot of people that might not understand racing, what's the role of the banking and the size of the track as far as the speed?
I'll let the race driver talk.
Okay. As far as the banking, it's 36 or 37 degrees, depends on who you talk to. We've had teams that were with protractors and trying to figure it out, but I tell everybody it's 37 degrees because that's what I saw one time. It might be just in 1 inch of the racetrack, but if you ever try to walk up the racetrack, you'll understand it, or walk down it. And that's, I always tell people, if you think it's hard walking up and down it, then you have to understand my track crew, because they're up there picking up tore up race cars and spreading stuff all over the racetrack. So it's quite the track to try to walk up.
Yeah, I get the chance. I've been in pit a few times there, and after the race, as a little kid, to try to walk up that banking. It's unbelievable. And then to try to walk down is, I think, even scarier.
Yep,
absolutely. We actually have to tell some of the drivers in the drivers' meeting, if you hit the wall up there, if you have to get out of the car, that's one thing, but you're better off to stay in the race car, because you're liable to end up at the bottom and not remember it, because there's liquid on the track, or you lose your footing and you ain't want to stop. Once you start tumbling, you're going to be at the bottom.
I remember seeing somebody in a sprint or a midget jump off the top of the cage and didn't put it together, like, didn't quite think that, and I think he did a cartwheel.
I wouldn't doubt it. It's
somersault or something.
In comparison, what's Daytona, like 30, 31 at the max?
I thought it was like 34.
Is it that high?
That's what because I remember that they said it was like the second or third highest banked, and Winchester was the highest. So,
but I think they've got it, and I haven't been there. The Hall of Fame Museum, I believe, down there, it shows the different bankings of all the tracks, I think Winchester stands out.
Yeah, if you've seen the Daytona 500 and that kind of banking, just a little bit more, and then make that a half mile, and it just creates excellent racing.
As a driver around there, there's no thrill like going in turn 3. I'm telling you, it's just the excitement you'll never feel anywhere else.
I always hear drivers say there's a lot of character to it,
Yep.
and there's certain bumps and places where you can avoid the bumps, and different ways, different guys.
It's a
handle
rush.
The track,
It's
go in low and come out high.
No, I've been told by some racers, seeing up in the stands, you can see the whole track and you see if there's trouble in two. When you're going down that straight, the front stretch, you really can't see anything in past one, can you? Because it's basically a wall.
Nope, absolutely not. Yeah, it's just the banking and, the A-pillar in the car and stuff. You can't, you're relying on your spotter, the lights, and just pure instinct because, that's one thing that happens a lot over there is guys, unfortunately, aren't paying attention. They drive off the end of their hood, and the time you get there, and you hit the brakes, you're still over 100 mile an hour. It's not good, So a lot of fans will, bust on racers when they see them spin out in the back and stuff. It's just because, the speeds there are just unbelievable.
Do you guys still have that sign up as you enter the track or the under the bleachers? What's that sign say?
Through these gates past the bravest drivers in the world.
I remember seeing that sign. I thought that's true after watching a few races there.
Absolutely. There's that sign probably has had more pictures taken with it.
Right.
And I love seeing drivers and, fans stop by and get their picture taken. We took the original, well, they claimed it to be one of the original signs down, and we made a different one. And we may put both of them up this year.
We got blown up. The original one is behind the new one.
Yes.
Got blown up by people saying, hey, how could you mess with history? We made that sign about 4 years before, and it's vinyl, and it was coming apart. And so guess what? We thought we put something up permanent, and it's got a bunch of cars in it. Maybe it's not the same. I keep hearing rumors that there was a sign there at one point in time. I've never seen the picture, but we wanted the history to continue on. Absolutely. We talked to Donald Davidson about it, and he goes, I've heard that, but he didn't have anything to give us proof for that. But too many people have said that it existed, so got to believe it.
Oh, I mean, and like I said, through the gates past the bravest drivers in the world, because there's been a few drivers, and I've heard stories that Bobby Allison was one, and there was another IndyCar driver, and I can't think his name, went out there and practiced and loaded their cars up and said, not for me. I will not race here. You're crazy. So it happens. There's, like I said, we got the sprint car race coming up, and one driver in particular we made contact with. Should we mention his name?
Sure.
But Kirk called Kenny Schrader, and he ran the little 500. And Kirk asked him if he was going to come to Winchester. And if I'm not mistaken, he said no. Then he turned around and said, hell no. He said,
he goes, you know how old I am, and I'm not crazy. I'm smarter as I've aged.
So I did talk to Kenny.
There he was running the little 500.
He ran the little 5.
Yeah. I talked to Kenny, and he said that he said, I'm pretty sure I'm racing somewhere else that day. And he asked one of his pit crew, and he said, where were we racing at that day? And he goes, I'm pretty sure we got it off. And Kenny looked at him and said, no, we're racing somewhere that day. I know I am.
We're going to make something up.
He'll find a modified race somewhere to run in.
He did act like he wanted to come just to hang with us. So I said, come on, bring it on.
Kenny, he was, another super nice guy.
Yep. Great guy to talk to.
It's great you guys talking about that sprint car race. When's the last time you guys have had non-wing sprint cars at Winchester?
2011.
Yep, 2011.
That's about the time USAC stopped the pavement series?
Correct, yes. Yep. Tracy Hines had a really good day that day.
Absolutely. Yep, he broke the track record.
I don't know if he broke it that day
or the year before.
It might have been a couple years before. I think it was a year that Dave Darlin won.
What's the track record for a non-wing sprint car?
13.964.
I think that's it.
That's flying.
Yep.
Yes.
For no wing. And the track record is wing sprint.
Yeah, Jojo Helber, right? Yeah. There's a video of that on YouTube.
It's beautiful.
I've watched it many times.
Yeah. He was a busy guy. He had a moment that first lap and still broke the record, and then smoothed it out a little bit on lap number 2.
That's one crazy guy right there.
He is. I
mean, they're all crazy, but I mean that's
like talking to Dave Darlin. It was funny. I was at the PRI show, and him and I and Charlie kind of ran into each other, and we started talking. And Charlie started talking about how Dave wasn't very comfortable on the paved track. I mean, he obviously came from the Kokomo area, and I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, 2 months before, I just watched you dominate on pavement. And he looked at me and he goes, well, I got better. I think he's won two features out there, but it was like, how could you have any issues after I just watched you dominate this race?
Yeah, I'm glad to see Dave's feeling better. I was over at Eldora when he took his tumble.
I heard about that.
I think he said he broke a rear axle coming out of 4, and Eldora's another big fast track, and took a good tumble. So I'm glad to see he's back in the seat. Now, you got the show coming up with the non-wing sprint cars. That's on June 22nd and June 23rd. One thing I don't think a lot of people realize is the amount of effort and time and just dedication it takes to put on a weekend show like that.
Absolutely.
We've been working a lot.
I will testify to that all day long.
Now, this show is, like I said, it's here in a few weeks, 3-4 weeks away. When did the ball get rolling on, hey, let's get sprint cars back at Winchester?
About how many years ago we really been working it, and I guess sat down and had a beverage and some Pizza King pizza.
Yep.
And Randy Neal and Craig Armstrong were with us, and we started kicking around some ideas. We'd been talking to Charlie about it, and well, if we could put something together, let's do it. And all of a sudden, we got some support from those guys, and then next thing you know, Vors Welding and Steel. Danny Redmond and Steve Vore are great guys. They run a really good series. The front-wheel drive series is amazing. It's shocking to watch those little cars run around there. And there's always only 40 or 50
I say they bring a whole fleet of them.
Absolutely.
So those guys jumped in, and then Auto Value jumped in, and then a good friend of ours, Bob and Beverly Blake, he is my Kenworth Palmer Trucks guy, and I don't think this is really coming from Palmer. I think they're like, we just like you guys, like hanging out. And Bob and Beverly Blake said, hey, we want to help you out with this race. And then David Stanley from Knapp Supply jumped in, and he's going to do our pole award, and he does some other stuff, and he does some stuff with the Vors series. So all of a sudden, it's like, here we go. And then Evan Jackson, Racing Engines, jumped in, and he wants to sponsor the 40-lap event. They all came out of the woodwork, and then Jimmy and I are like, well, what else are we going to do? And next thing you know, we put lap sponsor. We had a board that we're going to print out, a big board. That thing sold out, $50 a lap, adds $2,000 to whoever leads each lap. $2,000 total. That's not per lap. $50 per lap.
50.
And we sold that thing out in about 2.5 weeks.
Yeah, it wasn't
After
long.
about a week, it's like, man, maybe we should have made it a little more higher price, but you know what? $50 was perfect. And then it quit when we had about 10, and we sat there for a couple days, and all of a sudden they came out of the woodwork, and we've had people like, come on, man, I missed it. But nope, we filled them up. And Jimmy, I got to give him credit. He's doing some other contingency awards that we're going to be announcing, and I think these drivers are going to be pretty pumped. They're pumped up with what we're paying to win anyway. I'll let you, Jimmy, kind of dive in on some of that.
I'm trying to think back when was that meeting? It was probably in March, April.
I think it was earlier than that.
Well, yeah, I guess we are in. But anyhow, we met with them guys.
Mm-hmm.
Every time we talk to race fans or we're on Facebook Live, we get blown up. When's the non-wing sprint cars coming back? Unfortunately, when USAC kind of let it go, the non-wings kind of, I would say, disappeared on asphalt. So we talked to some people and found out there was a group out of Michigan, which is the Auto Value Bumper to Bumper Super Sprint Series, that was going to run non-wings this year. So after a couple phone calls, and we've made some, had some different conversations, it all started coming together, and then we announced a purse, and then, like I said, with Neil Metal Recycling and Evan Jackson's Racing Engines, these other guys stepped up, the purse really went above and beyond. So now that race is paying $8,000 to win. It's a 40-lap feature with $1,100 to start.
I think that's key. Some of these races pay so heavy up front. To start might be a few $100s. You say it's $1,100 to start.
If you make the features, $1,100.
That's impressive.
And exactly. I'm not sure what a lot of the other tracks pay, but I'm going to say around $3,000-$4,000 to win, and probably $400 or $500 to start. So we're paying $1,100 just to start the show. And which that wasn't nothing that Charlie put up. It was just all through the sponsors, because people want to see non-wing sprint cars, and my phone has blowed up with people just calling, just excited that non-wings are back at Winchester. Like I said, this will be 8 years with there, 8 or 9 years since they've been there. So we're expecting a good crowd. I've been talking to a lot of race teams, and we're expecting a good car count. We got an entry fee out because, like I've told the fans and I've told everybody, I'm not going to be one of these promoters that says I got 30 or 40 cars coming, only 15 show up. So we put an entry form together just so the guys will have to enter if they're going to come. That way, they're committed, and then that way I can advertise who is coming, because I always have a problem when, you hear there's going to be 30 race cars there and you show up and there's 15.
Yeah, I always enjoy. There's some other tracks that will list pre-entry races or entries, and you get excited. You're like, oh, hey, they're up to 25 entries, and this guy is going to be there.
We want to pump up the
Builds it
drivers. We want to pump up their sponsors, their team owners. That's
what it's all about. I
be-
mean, like I said, if Aaron Pierce, I mean, right now we have probably 90% of the teams told me they could not enter till after the little 500 in case something happened, which I respect that 100%. But we got 2 cars entered before the little 500. And the first entry was Kiesling Racing, which that was Sean Cottle drove it over, or Shane Cottle.
Yep.
I'm sorry. Shane drove it at the little 5, and they had a little early issue, and that kind of wasn't good for them. And Bobby Santos. So we've been checking the mail daily now since the little 5's over. As a matter of fact, a while ago, one guy called me when I showed Kirk my phone was ringing, and it was a driver, calling me. So entries are going to start coming in. And when they enter, we'll start talking them up, and I want to be able to give the fans an exact car count's going to be there. I'm saying we're going to have 30 cars. People tell me that we're going to have, anywhere from 20 to 40. So I feel safe right now saying we'll have 25 cars, just from people that I've talked to, verbally committed. Through this whole ordeal, I got to give a shout out to my wife, because I'm telling you, I've been on the phone and on the computer, and it's just... I talk to her in the middle. I'll wake up in the middle of the night and want to start talking racing, but that's just me, because, the mind never shuts down. But this race is going to be something special at Winchester. We got the old timers are going to be there that weekend. We're expecting probably 80 vintage cars there. They're going to be on the racetrack making laps. They don't race. They're just, out there making laps. So
Those cars are just really neat to see.
Oh, It's awesome. I love it. My dad has 2 of them, and he'll be there. And it's just neat just because it just brings back memories seeing them cars go around the racetrack. So the iCar Thunder Roasters will be there. We're working on a couple other special things. We won't announce that until it becomes official, but we're pretty sure it's going to happen. So it's going to be an awesome weekend.
Yeah, vintage cars are. You go and you look at them, and it's like, what were these guys thinking?
Yeah, the lack of
Roll
safety.
hoops.
Yeah, they don't need
Went
roll
up
bars.
halfway up your back, maybe.
Yeah, a seat.
Yeah, there's no protection, and we're getting it. Just getting it.
Well, I think you guys are doing it right, because having that increased purse, to me, just even elevates Winchester. If you're going to go to Winchester and race that, and then you get the extra prize money, it just builds more and more excitement, and that track deserves a big purse.
And that's what I've had a couple people tell me. The purse is too much. We should have stayed at $3,000 to win, but my comeback is it's Winchester. You got to build the money up to get the cars there, because I just don't foresee it working with $3,000 to win,
right?
Or $2,000 to win, or whatever the number is.
Jimmy and myself, our focus is get a bunch of butts in the seats, have a great, successful event. Then Charlie's going to look at it and say, "Hey, let's do another one." We want because we have 3 events.
Yep, exactly.
Major events, they're big events, but we'd like to have more. I mean, how many times have we tried to get more and more?
The last thing that Charlie wants, I want, Kirk wants, everybody wants it, is for, we have a major crowd attendance and then have 12 race cars on the racetrack, because that right there will just be a black eye for everybody. So that's why we're doing the entry. I should be able to tell you a week in advance, because the entry forms are due like a week before the race, how many cars I'm going to have there. And, and like I said, there's a lot of big shooters. Anybody that is anybody in a sprint car, they're going to be there.
Yeah, and, as a race fan, I like going where there's big purses. Is this a points race for any series?
It will be for the auto value
Points
series, but a lot of the guys just, they just run the big paying races.
I like to go see kind of an outlaw type race where it's big money, and you're drawing in the best guys, and you're going to get a better show that way, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
We're looking at an autograph session, so if you got all the guys have cards to sign, so we're hopefully going to run in and have lunch with Robin Miller and see if we can drag Lee Koonsman and Johnny Parsons and Gary Irvin and Merle Bettenhausen, and I'm going to forget a few, but we're going to try to kidnap them and get them out here. We talked to Doug Bowles about coming out, and his son Carter loves sprint car racing and short tracks, so I know all those folks are busy, but they're like, "Whoa, you got non-wing sprint cars coming out?" We're going to try to be there, so we'd love to have some celebrities running around.
People crave non-wing sprint cars at Winchester.
Mm-hmm.
We go to a lot of races, and people's like, "Man, I see them at Winchester again." It seems like the little 5's starting to get more and more entries each year from where it was a few years ago. So I'm excited.
I had a gentleman call me, I think it was Sunday. Apparently Eldora must have rained out Sunday.
I believe
They
so,
did.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay, and I could tell he'd had a few beverages, which was, that's fine. And he said, "Hey, are you guys racing today?" And I was like, "No, we just run special races." And he goes, "When's your next race?" And I said, "June 23rd at non-wing sprint cars." And I mean, you'd have thought the guy just won the lottery. He started screaming and hollering. And all of his friends, he was like, "Hey, sprint cars are coming back to Winchester." And, they was all, and at first I thought it was kind of a setup, but they was apparently at Eldora and got rained out, and they was just hollering and
You
screaming.
were probably on the radio
Yeah.
with somebody. We just don't know it.
They was like, "We're going to be there." And he asked all kinds of questions, but I was like, that's the excitement we need, and it's going to be out there.
Yeah, and we're in the heartbed of racing, in my opinion, dirt or asphalt.
Absolutely.
I mean, you have Salem, you have Winchester, you have Anderson Speedway if you want asphalt,
Yep.
and then you got Eldora, Kokomo, Gas City, Lawrenceburg, Bloomington, you name it. So yeah, everyone wants more racing, especially something that we haven't had in a few years, non-wing at
Right.
Winchester. So I'm sure there's a lot of excitement,
And the
it's
price is
Absolutely.
isn't ridiculous.
You
I
can't beat
mean, $20 grandstands. I mean,
it's worth $20 to go watch qualify.
absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Just to
Absolutely.
see the speed.
Yep.
Especially if you've never been there before.
Yep.
What all else goes into? I mean, you guys have the concession, you got the big pavilion area, the big camping area. I mean,
The racing, even though we race on June 23rd, this all started January 1st because, like you mentioned the camping, for our Winchester 400 in October, it sells out. So, you only have till I think March or May 1st,
May 1st, yeah.
to, reserve your campsite. So, there's a lot of work goes into that. The concessions, we got a different, I'll let Kirk talk about that in a minute, but all the promotional stuff. I mean, we're still promoting, we're promoting this race. Then we'll go into our Labor Day race. We'll promote that.
And camping at Labor Day has become crazy. We don't take reservations, but
First come.
it's heading that direction. I mean,
It's getting close to sell
we always
out.
call it the tune-up for the Winchester 400, and it's become its own little thing. I mean, it's 3 days of a lot of fun. We were talking about the pavilion. We have parties in the pavilion. We'll have a DJ or a band, and that place gets really rocking. I mean, it's a lot of fun. There's like what's the stuff in mason jars? I don't know what that is, but people show up with all kinds of beverages.
Yeah, you get offered a lot of drinks, but I'm telling you, stay away from them.
And then 400 weekend, like Jimmy was saying, I mean, I don't know how many camp spots we sell, but it becomes its own little city. They come in a week before.
Yes.
It's some of the same people we've seen year after year after year, and we walk in there and they're grilling out and they offer us food, beer, pop, water, whatever you want, and it's like family. It's like a big, huge group of family, and you high-five each other as you see them. Well, Jimmy gets busy with the racing stuff. Sometimes we'll have Charlie on a golf cart, and he'll go out and pick people up because we do have to park people elsewhere to get them in because we're like kind of landlocked. But you never know who's driving the golf carts that'll pick you up. I mean, we have a blast.
Yeah.
That's actually one of the best jobs. Don't get paid for it, but it's a lot of fun to talk to fans. Where you from? You never know where they're from all states. And then sometimes we're from Winchester. And I'm like, well, where you been? And they'll be like, well, our kids are grown or the grandkids are done playing softball or baseball. We're finally getting back to Winchester. It's always cool to see a family come out, and it's like, well, we've just been so busy with life and fair stuff and different things, and we're getting back. We sold the pontoon, so now we're coming back racing.
Yeah, and I mentioned this earlier. We're so spoiled as race fans because we go Sprint Week, Eldora, Winchester, wherever we go, we'll always talk to people when you're tailgating, and people go, where are you from? They're from Florida or California or Pennsylvania. They go, we wanted to come see non-wing. I'm like, we live 20 minutes down the road. And it was so spoiled to have that here.
Yep.
And we've been, I'll be up there and just pull in to the racetrack, jump in the office, grab something, be heading out, and a car will pull up or a pickup. And it might be an 80-year-old man with his girlfriend or wife. And you came here 40 years ago, and they start talking, and then next thing you know, it's like, hey, you want to take a lap around the track? And their eyes get big, and they go around. I said, try not to hit the wall, please. They'll go. I mean, people are amazed. We had Gold Wing crew came out, and they all carry. I don't know. I'm not big into the bikes other than MotoGP, but Gold Wings, and they had trailers. And I don't know how many that showed up to Randolph County, but next thing you know, they came out to the racetrack, and so we let them take laps. And while that was going on, the Let's Do 2 over at Eldora.
Oh, Let's Race 2
Let's
or something
Race
like
2.
that. Yeah.
Cars would pull up, and they'd walk up. I thought it was with the Gold Wing group, And they're like, no, we were at Eldora, and we just wanted to come over and see Winchester. So I let a few roll out there and take laps. And we had a couple that stayed there for 2 hours and hung out with us, just talked racing. And they went through the breezeway and just looked at the old pictures.
That's one thing about this short track racing I love. Is just the camaraderie between the fans, the racers, the promoters. I feel like that gets lost at the higher levels.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
You can buy a pit pass, $30.
It's worth it.
And walk in there, and if you're not in the way, you know when it's time. When they're qualifying, the boys are going to work. When they're getting ready to go race, they're working. But there's plenty of time. You'll walk in there and a crew member will grab you and start talking, or you can ask a question. And I'm telling you, it's fantastic. You got like a bonding session going on in there, and you're just having a blast talking racing.
It's a big family. I'm like Kirk said, it's a city, or it kind of turns into a city, and then it's just family and friends. I mean, probably most of my friends, true friends, have come through the racing ranks. I got some really good friends, and we probably met at the racetrack.
Yeah.
There's people that we go to their houses. I got invited to a party last Saturday night from our Pollock friends up north.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That's what they call him.
That's
so.
his name, Big
yeah.
Pollock.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
But just family and friends that we met at the racetrack, and now they claim us as their own. So I love it. Just the camaraderie, and it's just it's what we love.
It's an Indiana passion for sure.
Absolutely.
Now, how does it work when you guys have sanctioning bodies come in, like the CRA late models?
Mm-hmm.
How's the responsibilities kind of bounce? I've always wondered that when they come to your track, like as far as safety or who's going to run the format of the race, how's that work?
Okay, with CRA, that's ran by Glenn Luckett and R.J. Scott and Greg Woods. Them guys, when they show up, they're in charge of basically all their series. Glenn is the race director for CRA, so he does all that. They have their own flagman, they have their own tech. But Winchester is in charge of all the gate personnel, our wreckers, our ambulance, our track crew. So they more or less conduct the racing part of it. And that's the same with the iCar Modifieds with Dave Mazzillo, or any series that comes in there. They take care of the actual racing part of it, where we take care of, to get everything prepared. The track crew, everybody else is under our direction. And it works out great because we're all up in the tower together. I help them, they help me. If something happens on the racetrack, and the spotters will stand beside us, which that's the CRA or the Modifieds, whoever might be there. They're in contact with the spotters, but the actual race teams will listen to CRA as they call everything. But like I said, on track, pre-race, all that stuff is up to us.
Okay.
And then once we give them the command to start the engines, and basically CRA is in charge of whatever happens on the racetrack.
I got to tell a story on Jimmy in the tower.
Oh, Lordy.
My sister and dad were in town for one of the races, and they've been around racing, since day one, and we've gone everywhere. But I'm like, hey, come on up here. Let's go up here and hang with Jimmy. So there's Jimmy and Danny Redmond and the announcers, and I don't even know who all. Their eyes got huge when they sat there and listened and watched what goes on to make a race occur. It's mass chaos, but it's poetry in motion, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Jimmy's doing his thing. Danny Redmond was doing his thing, talking into the receiver and just talking to all the cars. And a wreck occurred, and the announcer's doing his thing, and then there's a couple other sanctioning body guys in there, and Jimmy's doing his thing. And my sister, I remember, she grabbed my arm. She's like, I had no clue this went on. Had no idea. I said, how do you think? Because it's like you watch a race and there's a flagman and everything looks pretty calm and cool.
Yeah.
And it's not. It's crazy up there, but it's so fun because the guys are just digging it. And it's poetry in motion. It really is. If you get a chance, go up there and just hang for a while.
And like I said, everybody's got a job to do up there. So, I'll say it, we're all good at what we do up there. And, we encourage the race fans. I was shocked at the Little 500, and I don't know what this was, but the race teams don't pass out their frequencies. Where when you come to Winchester, late models, NASCAR, you can get a scanner and listen to every race team. At Winchester, I'll give you our frequency. You can listen to the fire and safety and the wreckers and all that if you want to. Sometimes there's some stuff that they probably shouldn't hear on the radio, but that's just the heat of the moment stuff. And the same with, any series, But the Little 500, they didn't have, and nothing against the Little 500, it's just sprint cars don't give out their frequencies. So, but we
We'll have to
encourage
sneak
people
around and see if we can get us some of those.
Well, I probably could have, but that's all right. But I was just, I encourage people to, ask for our frequencies and listen to us. That way, because it gets a little hectic sometimes.
Yeah, you can get a race going and sometimes kind of lose track of the leader, or if there's something going on the track, you have your headphones on. You actually it's like listening to the radio basically.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yep. We try to, like I said, when we do our jobs and we do it well up there, because all the drivers are at our mercy. When Glenn's calling the race for CRA, if something happens, it's his job to say yellow. The flagman has to throw the yellow. The spotters tell their teams to slow down. Then it's my job to get everybody on the racetrack to get the mess cleaned up or get to the injured person or whatever. So, it's just, there's a lot of responsibility, and I'll say we're pretty good at it.
Everybody in there's on the same wavelength.
Yep,
It's pretty cool to see that. Like I said, I've said that twice, but
yeah.
Everybody works together, and it's like, because things happen, and there's times
Absolutely.
where you don't see something happens, and a guy goes low or stays up high against the wall. It's tough to see.
Yep.
And they all are looking. They've almost got hand signals. Sometimes they don't even talk, and they know what they're saying. It's funny.
Me and Glenn is up there. I just keep going back to Glenn because that's CRA, because they're obviously there the most. But if Dave or Danny's up there, we stand side by side. And one of the rules in our tower is you're not allowed to go, "Oh my God," because people come up there, and then because if you hear someone holler "ooh" or "oh" or something like it, you think something happened. And and we all work off instinct up there, because if someone hollers "oh my God," then that might make the race director want to throw the yellow. Because, obviously he might be watching in turn 2 and there could be a wreck somewhere. But it's just, like I said, it's just poetry in motion up there. We do our best because, like I said, our goal is to get all them drivers out of the racetrack and going home with their families, without, being tore up. But we do our best to take care of them.
Now, you guys have 3 events this 2019 race season. Obviously, we've talked about the non-wing sprint cars on June 22nd, June 23rd. What other events do you guys have? I know obviously late models, because we've been talking about them, but what are the dates on those?
Well, the Labor Day, which is, we call it the World Stock Car Festival, and it's a tune-up for the Winchester 400. This year it'll happen on August 31st, September 1st, September 2nd. The 31st is a Saturday. We just mainly practice everybody from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. It's open practice, so the cars can come in and get set up. Saturday we'll practice and qualify, and we'll run some heat races for some of the support divisions. Then Sunday is mainly features. Well, I take it back on Saturday night.
Yeah, hang on. It's every time we do Labor Day, we forget that it's Saturday, Sunday, Monday.
Oh, that's right. I did say it already, didn't
We
I?
do that every time.
Okay, Saturday is the practice. Sunday is the practice, qualifying, heat races. And then Sunday night, we also run the JEGS All-Star Tour feature, and the Vors Compacts run a feature that night. So you'll see features and
Two
heat
great
races.
features to watch,
Absolutely.
I'm telling you.
And then after that, it's self-proclaimed as the world's greatest party down in the pavilion. It'll start as soon as the races are over, and it'll end anywhere from 1 to 4 a.m. in the morning. That's just in the pavilion, and a lot of them escalate out to the parking lot. But that's a great time. Then
Camping for that event's $25 for
Absolutely.
the entire weekend.
It's fantastic.
Can't get much better than that.
No, and like I said, there's the race teams out in the parking lot. There's race cars outside. It's just an atmosphere you wouldn't believe until you're there. Then on Sunday we run features only, which
Monday.
Monday.
Here you go. It's Labor Day.
Labor Day weekend.
Painful.
Yes.
I do the same thing.
Monday we'll run features only, which will have the CRA Super Series. They'll be there for 100 laps. The iCar Modified Series, they run what they call the run for the BB gun, because in the 400 weekend they have the run for the
gun. Yep.
Run for the gun. So we do a BB gun.
Don't shoot your eye out 40 is what we call it.
It's just kind of a little funny thing to do with the modified. Thunder Roasters will be there. The CRA Late Model Sportsman, CRA Street Stocks, and I thought the compacts were back on Monday, but
I don't think so. I had them on there, but I'm not sure. But I better double check. Fix this.
I mean, they're going to be there racing
Right.
Sunday, so basically, I think there's 7 or 8 divisions there for the whole weekend.
And I almost said Sunday. Monday is features only.
Yep.
So you get there at 1:00. Features fire up, and there's a lot of activity. And I got to give kudos. I don't want to do it too often, but got to give Jimmy kudos, because he doesn't let the track get idle. When they're ready to go. Let's go. Let's get them going green. If there's an accident, let's get it cleared up. Let's get them back to green.
That's a big thing for race fans.
Yeah, we don't have big intermissions in the middle of it. I hate that.
It's not a dirt track. It doesn't need prepped.
No.
Nope.
I mean, man, you need some oil clean or something like that.
Yes.
But, yeah, I hear you.
The biggest thing is when it rains.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, a lot of people, I'm probably going to go on a soapbox here, but a lot of racetracks been getting rained out here lately. And, you know, I mean, just this last weekend, a racetrack got rained out, and people were on social media bad-mouthing them because it wasn't raining. Well, there's a lot more than just the racetrack being dry. You know, I mean, these haulers are monster haulers, you know, the parking lot. There's just so much more into canceling a race, you know, but we try not to cancel at Winchester, but, you know, when it rains, it's
We've been out there way too late drying the track.
yes. In Winchester, it's a couple hours getting her dry.
It's tough.
You know, I mean, that's not just a little bitty bull ring. That's a big, wide, half-mile racetrack. So,
And you know, you got to look at the owner and the series when it starts raining and you get the track cleaned up or cleared up or postpone and run it again. You think anybody makes money? Because guess what? The place is empty or half empty.
Right.
So.
you know, these tracks they had to cancel over the weekend. You know, they had money and advertisement. You know, I mean, everything they done, you know, they just threw that out the window basically. So, you know, if a racetrack cancels, there's a reason. So,
Right.
But then that takes us into the 48th annual Winchester 400 on October 11th, 12th, and 13th, and that'll be a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. That's actually that's the biggest race, stock car race of the year. There, that's one that everybody wants to be at. Like I said, our campground is sold out. We try to get more campers in there, but we're landlocked, so we can only get so many. We have a waiting list for campers wanting in there, so we're trying, folks. The 11th is a Friday. We practice all day. Again, for all, I think there's 7 divisions or 6 divisions there this weekend. Then on Friday night, we'll run the Jegs All-Star Tour. That's a 100-lapper, and the Compacts again for a 25-lapper. So that'll be the Friday after practice.
8 divisions. Am I counting that right?
Okay, it probably
We've
are.
got 8.
Okay, well, a lot of race cars.
Yep.
I know that.
Plenty of action.
Plenty of action. So Saturday morning, we'll come back early. We'll practice, qualify, run heat races, and then we'll do the 400 pole qualifying. And then we'll run the iCar All-Star Tour Modified Series for their Run for the Gun 50, CRA Late Model Sportsman, CRA Street Stocks, and Thunder Roadsters. That'll be a awesome day right there. And then we get ready for Sunday as we come back for the 48th Annual Winchester 400. We'll do a CRA Super Series. CRA Super Series will run 400 laps. That's pit stops, the whole 9 years. We used to do live pit stops, but actually we went to controlled caution, which they're still live, but it's just the cost. What was happening was a lot of the late model teams were buying NASCAR teams to come down and do pit stops. I mean, you know, I would say the average pit stop team, you know, local guys can probably do a pit stop in 18 to 20 seconds, I'm saying. Well, you know, they're bringing in the NASCAR teams and clicking one off in 13 seconds. So, you know, it was just putting them guys, you know, so that forced everybody to hire NASCAR teams. So to save the cost, we went to controlled cautions, which means wherever you come in the pits at, as long as you get back out within 1 lap under, I think it's 2 laps under yellow, you get your spot back. So it was a good idea CRA come up with, and it's still intense because, you know, the guys are still in there busting off quick pit stops, and, you know, everybody wants to beat each other out, but, you know, so that took care of the cautions, and then there'll be an autograph session prior to the race.
That's become pretty huge.
Absolutely.
That is,
you know,
everybody, as we were talking earlier, you see people cruise down turn 4 or turn 1 and walk up the banking. They might not care about, they just want to get on the banking and walk up and down and experience how steep it really is.
Absolutely. And, you know, the autograph session, you know, heck, who known a couple of years ago, you know, Noah Gregson or, you know, Chase Elliott, you know, would be where they're at today. You know, I mean, they're getting autographs from guys, you know, Eric Jones won it 3 years in a row.
3 in a row.
You know, now look where he's at. Mm-hmm. So, you know, just the average guy that you're going to talk to might be the next, you know, he's up at the next level.
Or the 14-year-old that's, you know.
Yep, the next big thing.
Absolutely. Then we have, you know, last couple of years we've tried to surprise the crowd. If he was ever there, we during the national anthem, me and Kirk, after a lot of work, a lot of timing.
It's not easy.
Yeah.
But it's well worth it.
Yeah, we pulled off the flyover, which I don't know of any other racetracks that's ever done a flyover for just a regular late model race.
Yeah.
If you was there, if you didn't have, the hair standing up on your arms, your back.
A-10s out of Fort Wayne, the Black Snakes.
They fly over
better.
this house all the
Do
time.
they?
I mean,
Absolutely.
It's fantastic.
Well, like I said, you can see on the flyer here, there's
Yeah.
4 of them. And last year, I knew how long they had to be there at a certain time. The national anthem had to end at a certain time. And last year, I mean, I ain't going to brag, but we nailed it perfect.
Yep.
I mean, I was so ecstatic because I lost sleep, literally afraid I was going to screw this up.
We had a guy on the ground. We had
Yes.
our buddy Travis from up there came, and it was nice to have him on a radio, so that kind of controlled
Those
it.
810s
We did
when they
we
fly
did
over.
it. What year was it? We did it maybe 6-7 years before.
Yes. Yeah.
And they had nobody on the ground, so Jimmy, he's out
man.
there with the stopwatch, and
didn't-
Trace, she was out there helping us, and we're all of a sudden I start getting texts from buddies of mine from Portland, Indiana, saying, "Hey, your A-10s are hovering over my
Oh,
house."
man.
And next thing you know, here they come.
Those are awesome planes.
And we nailed that thing.
Yeah,
we
it
nailed
was awesome last year because, I mean, I bet there wasn't probably 20 people that knew it was going to happen because we didn't want to tell them because it's just a nice surprise.
Oh, yeah.
And they come over the woods over the backstretch. And actually, my daughter, she knew about it, so she's done some taping of it.
So you got a great picture for the flyer
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
well.
I mean, if you go to I think it's on our Facebook page, or I'm not sure where it got off to. but-
Yeah. Well, there's
Check that out.
Just
I mean,
jump on YouTube. And,
Yeah, okay,
and
YouTube.
It'll
I mean,
pull
but
it up.
I'm going to brag. The timing was perfect.
You might
I mean,
as well. That's hard work.
Oh, man, when she hit, the home of the brave, I mean, here they come.
You didn't hear Brave.
Yeah, I know.
So loud.
They're
Oh,
A-10s.
yeah, it was just, I mean, like I said, I was ecstatic. I was probably, screaming like a little girl because it was just, I mean, just exciting,
It was
man.
cool.
Everybody was
We were
very
down there
excited.
because we have a stage. We use a flatbed for the stage from Astral Carrier, and we started. We had to hurry up and get that thing out of the way. And finally, I said, "No, we're going to enjoy the flyover."
Yeah.
And we're sitting out there, and we can't see because we're in the pit lane, and the woods back there. You can't see it, and they're coming right for it. And all of a sudden, you hear the crowd start going crazy, and it was so cool. It was neat.
It
Neat
was.
deal.
It was.
Now, I got to tell another story, Jimmy.
Oh, Lord.
I remember on the last flyover we had, was that 2010? Somewhere in there. We're sitting there on Saturday and running around, and F-16s about 1:30, 2 o'clock go flying over. And I start hearing all the radios of guys, gate guys and different guys, security. It's like, where's Kirk? Where's he at?
So
we thought we messed up. Yeah. I said, those weren't A-10s. I said, okay, we're good. We're good.
But yeah, they said that they had a lot of compliments. I didn't get to hear none of them, but the race teams didn't know that was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, a lot of drivers and spotter, they was just, hollering back and forth.
Makes
how
us feel
excited they
big
were.
league out here in the middle of the cornfield.
That's
so-
big league track.
Yep.
Yeah, it was. I mean, that was perfect.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so I don't know if we'll do it again or not. You never know what we'll pull out there. We're always up for something new.
You got it. You got it.
One thing, Kurt, we talked about on the phone, I've had a lot of people ask me, as far as the future of the Speedway and getting more events throughout the year, and obviously not this year with all the planning that takes place, is that something you guys are wanting to try to add a few more events?
I think so. If we could get this first event to be successful, we can get a bunch of people out to support it. We will look at adding events. We talked to a bunch of guys at the Little 500 from some other sanctioning bodies, and they're like, yeah, hey, if we can, if that's successful, we'd like to coattail in on it, and we would love to have an open wheel weekend of just open wheel cars. We would like to grow this thing and keep it going. So a little personal thing, Charlie has, not the track, has sold his business, and that's official June 1st. So he might dive into the racetrack a little more. He might not. Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, Charlie's 83, has done a lot with that racetrack, spent a lot of money there. We're hoping that he just wants to dive in, and let's see. We need to see how this event goes, and I think he'll look at expanding and going.
I'll speak for all race fans. We want more events at Winchester.
Absolutely.
And I'm not personally, I don't care if it's late models, wing, sprint cars, non-wing. I mean, I'm kind of open to anything, just something on the big half mile.
Yes.
I mean, Winchester is a special event racetrack.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of people say, you guys ought to run every Saturday night. I mean, Anderson, Mount Lawn, Fort Wayne, Mount Pillier, Speedrome, Eldora, Shady Bowl over in Ohio. I mean, there's plenty of Saturday night racetracks.
Yeah.
We don't need to add another one to the mix as far as taking the fans away.
No, and
And some of them are dropping back a little bit.
Yeah,
They're
and
tightening
it's such
up.
a big track that it's so hard on equipment that I'm sure a weekly would just your car counts would suffer.
Oh yeah, car count, crowd. Because race fans are loyal to their racetracks. That's what we try to run on. Just special weekends and let them know in advance. And a lot of racetracks work with us. I mean, Anderson, like on Labor Day, they do like the Night of Thrills, so that gives all their cars to come over here. Shady Bowl, I think they took the weekend off. 400. When we run modifieds, like Fort Wayne, Angola, Shady Bowl, they won't run modifieds. So, we truly appreciate that. It just gives it, there's no need every racetrack having 10 cars.
All tracks need to work together.
Absolutely.
They really do.
I
They
cannot
really do.
promote that or cannot argue that point enough. That's what's hurting racing, in my opinion.
So obviously this guy takes up a lot of your guys' time, if not all of it. Is there anything you guys do outside of racing to kick back, relax?
I went out on my pontoon yesterday.
Did you?
Yeah, I got a sunburn too, and I'm still feeling it today.
Yeah, I got fried on Friday. We were out fishing. And,
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's racing is a lot of my life. I grew up in it. Now we're at Winchester. Probably my the biggest passion that I have is my grandkids. So I got 5 right now, and 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, I got 5 on the way.
1 and 5, right?
Yeah. Well, say Jack, Jeremy's, him and Jesse's expecting 1, and I won't say unfortunately, but the due date is our sprint car weekend. So I'm like, great, because
You do that. You've had that happen on.
Yes,
our-
I actually, Taylor, when Lila was born a couple years ago, 3 years ago, she was born on Winchester 400 weekend.
Yep.
So I was like, what is it with my grandkids being born on racing weekend?
You remember their birthdays that way.
Absolutely. I about missed the races because I had to, I was at the hospital. But it was funny because when we set this sprint car race up, we looked at dates. We had to hit a specific date where other teams weren't racing. And
There weren't many left.
no, there wasn't.
Yeah,
So
it was tight.
I'm sitting there and we're going through. Me and Kirk's going through it. And we thought, okay, we found the perfect date, June 23rd. Great. That is me and my wife's anniversary.
Oh, nice.
So, but like she said, we spent our wedding night at the racetrack. After we got married, we went to the races. So she goes, we've been married for 35 years, so why not, do it at the racetrack again? So
Absolutely.
I got an anniversary and possible another grandbaby coming this weekend. So we need to hold the grandbaby off, Jesse.
And really, Jimmy said it earlier, really got to thank the family. I've got 14-year-old twin daughters. I'm
Yes.
way too old to have 14-year-old twin daughters. My son lives over in Greenfield, but thank you to the girlfriend, Kim.
Absolutely.
Thank you for putting up with me in the month of May because I'm gone at the racetrack. She likes her vision of going to a race is walk in, sit down, green flag, watch them race, checkered flag. We got to go.
There's just so much more than that there.
That's where I'm at, and I took her to the little 500 3 years ago, and we walk in, and I walk in, and I see Brian Gerster, so we're like, I got him in a headlock. Saw Tony Main, Justin Grant, and I'm in my zone, and I mean, everywhere I look, I'm high-fiving somebody or grabbing somebody, and I'm having a blast. And you ever get the feeling like darts are coming at you? And I look over, and there
Those
she
eyes.
is. Her arms are crossed, and what time does this start? And I said, 8, and I think this was 5 or 5:30. And so I took her to the casino after that. We went and got something to eat, and she, as we were walking to the truck, she said, I don't think I'm going to come to this ever again. I said, I don't think you're going to get invited ever again. We laughed, and we've got that agreement.
Absolutely.
So, no, like I said, if she could fly in, helicopter in,
Green
wants
flag.
to, loves racing, but doesn't really care about all the other stuff. And Jimmy and I were over at the little 500, and if they'd have let us in at noon, we'd have probably been there. I mean, and you might have been there.
No.
I came a little later than Jimmy, but it was great just talking to drivers, team. You just, it's a who's who, and you have a blast over there talking racing.
We was over there Friday night. Me and my wife went over to watch the Mel Kenyon series, the little midgets, and the iCar Thunder Roasters were over there. And the races were over. I told my wife, I said, let's walk through the pits. And she said, okay. And I said, it will just be a few minutes. And she, we got in the car an hour later, and she goes, "I knew it wouldn't be a few minutes." So I was like, "I'm sorry, but just trying to talk to racers.
Yep.
We got to do our stuff."
Absolutely.
And like I said, she understands, supports it. So
She jumps
it's
in a
awesome.
golf cart and goes out and picks people up. The ticket office gets backed up. Guess who's there?
Yep.
His wife. So it's really cool. Everybody just jumps in.
She feeds us. She does it all.
Yep.
She's
yeah,
awesome.
everyone talks about the race car drivers and their sacrifice and the crews, but I think a lot of people forget what it takes to put on a race,
Absolutely.
especially a big weekend like you guys have coming up. Guys, I really appreciate you coming out and talking racing. It's one of those things I can talk about for hours.
We could go on too.
The weather's been tough this spring. I've been to one race, and typically by now we got 4 or 5 in, but we're hoping
it'll get better.
We got the Dream 100 next weekend at Eldor. We're going to go to, me and my dad, and then after that, I think it's going to be Winchester.
Good.
Awesome.
Good.
Look
I
forward to
got
having you
a
over.
wedding in Cincinnati that Saturday, so I have to be on my best behavior so I can get up semi-early and
I'm sure you can catch a ride from somebody.
run up 27 and get my spot at the Speedway.
We'll block off a spot for you and get you right in there. So.
Absolutely.
So I appreciate it. Wish you guys the best of luck this. Hopefully we get good weather. Big car counts, and this thing takes off. Like I said, as a race fan, speaking for all race fans, we all want more at the big half mile.
Sure.
Absolutely.
And look forward to it.
Like I said, just stay tuned for the fans. Stay tuned to our Facebook page, our website. All the information's on there. When the cars enter, their name will be on there. We do Facebook Live probably more than what we should.
Yeah.
But we have fun doing it.
It
and
is.
so, just come on out and support this race or support all of our races. Actually support every racetrack.
Absolutely.
Not just Winchester. There's plenty of racetracks. Take your kids, take your neighbors. Make everybody a race fan.
It's an affordable form of entertainment, and take a kid because they're the ones that's going to keep it going in the next 25 to 50 years. My son's a little small right now, but in a few years he's going to be running around the racetrack bleachers with his cars, and I can't wait for it.
Absolutely.
I want to thank you for what you do with your podcast.
Absolutely.
That's fantastic.
Love talking racing.
Good.
Anytime. We're always available.
Oh, yeah.
Tony Main started this. He was the first race car driver I had on, so he's like, "Hey, you guys should probably have the Winchester guys." And I said, "Absolutely."
Yeah. We were over on your porch the day later. We're ready to go.
We'll definitely do this again. Like I said, I appreciate all the work and everything that goes into it. Go to a racetrack this year. Like they said, support local racing. It's the best entertainment for the dollar around, bar none. And I'll definitely hopefully see all of our listeners there and see everyone at Winchester on June 22nd, June 23rd.
Looking forward to it.
Guys, I appreciate it. As always, contact me on Instagram or Facebook. Thanks. This episode of the Jake Sewell Podcast brought to you by Boxer Baby Bow Ties. If you have a cat or dog, you have to check out Boxer Baby Bow Ties. These are fashionable accessories for cats and dogs that are handmade by owner Kyle Marie Carsey right here in Indiana. You live out of state? No worries. All items ship anywhere in the U.S. So pamper your fur baby and show off their unique personality with their accessories for fashion-forward pets. Contact Kyle at boxer.baby.bowties@gmail.com or on Instagram at boxer.babies.bowties. Also check out her online store at boxerbabyboutique.com.